gain structure. So once again, this is one of those very important fundamentals to understand. This is episode number 2 in our 6-part fundamental course. If you've missed the first episode, we spoke about signal flow. So how the signal gets from the source or the instrument through all the cables, DIs and everything to the preamp and then out again. We draw it out, and I would encourage you, if you've missed that episode, go and watch that first episode and then come back to this one, because we're building on that concept. Only now we're focusing on the level changes, the gain changes or gain staging of that signal. We're going to use the bass guitar again to look at where the gain changes are happening, and this is a very simplified example. There's many other changes where gain can change or be manipulated, but we want to start with, this is a fundamental course, we want to start with the basics. Why is it so important? The decisions we make concerning our gains plays a massive role in how the mix is going to turn out. Consoles and hardware is made to work at a certain level or within a certain range. That's why you see on your console there's a 0 or a unity gain. That's where the hardware works the best. That's also where the resolution of the faders, and if this doesn't make sense, we're going to explain it a little bit later, works the best. Where it's easiest to mix, your fingers can reach all the faders, and the changes we make sense. Then secondly, when we make gain changes, we're not just manipulating that input, but also all the send-off points. So for instance, if it's going to a plugging engine, or if you're sending a direct out to a recorder, or someone else is relying on your gains for recording or a broadcast, the changes we make, we need to be cognizant of what we're doing, that we have enough signal and leave enough headroom, but also everyone else and every other piece of hardware that is getting affected by that gain change. Okay, this is the different stages our gain is going to go through with this very simplified signal flow or signal path. This is a chord C4 bass guitar running in passive mode, and all the tone settings are set to its nominal position, so there's no boosts or cuts, and also the pickup selector set to center, and we're running it in passive mode, so we're going to use an active DI. Remember, a active instrument will use a passive DI, and a passive instrument will use an active DI. That's a good place to start. So if you've got a keyboard, passive DI, if you can, that'll be better, and a passive instrument with an active DI. There's exceptions on the rule, but that's a good starting point. Then first thing that happens, we go to our active Radial Pro 48. There's no gain change there, but we are converting the signal from a jack to an XLR, and we're in PDIs matching it, and we're going from an unbalanced to a balanced signal, which is wonderful. Then next we're going into the local input of the Digico Quantum 112, and you can see there is a massive gain change. It's going to work out slightly different because of the fact that I am going into an embedder that's got a very hot input, but that will be a good example of how it will look in a real life scenario, and probably even a bit more gain than that, to be honest. Then it's the EQ. We're going to apply a little bit of EQ. I've made a provision here for 3 dBs, but we're going to do a crazy EQ so you can see how much it changes the signal. Next up is the compressor, and we're going to compress it at least 6 dBs so we can see that gain loss, but not to worry because we have makeup gain also in the compressor, and we can make up whatever we have compressed to get the same signal back, and even make up whatever we've lost in the EQ if we feel so. Then it goes to the input fader or the channel fader, and from there to the program output. Okay, so we've got our bass guitar, and as I said, all the settings are set to its nominal position, it's in passive mode, and the level is all the way open. So normally when it comes to instruments, I want to hear what is the max output. If it's tracks or keyboards, I want to see how much headroom I've got left. Even if the musician asks me to leave him a bit of headroom on the keyboard, for instance, first I want to see where it goes when it's full blast, full out, so that I can make sure that I've got enough headroom on my preamp left so I don't get any surprises. I've got my jack to jack plugged in. It's going through my DI. Okay, so this is our bass channel. I'm going to switch it on and just play. And you can hear it is very soft. You can hardly even see any signal there. So I'm going to select gain. It's this channel here. Start gaining it up. All of a sudden you can hear it starting to come into play. So now the scenario we have here is interesting because getting about -30 there, that is more than enough for the embedder. That is already actually louder than my voice on the embedder. But in a live sound scenario, that's not going to be enough to go to the PA. We want to be aiming more. We want to be aiming all up there depending on the PA setup. So in this scenario, we will do something like this. We're going to grab a bit more gain there. On the example, I had 18 dBs of gain. Then I want us to just have a listen to what happens if I just make some changes here. You can hear it's already about 2 or 3 dBs louder by just messing around with the tone settings. I'm going to pull these bands all the way down. And we've lost a significant amount of level and also obviously a significant amount of tone because of that crazy EQ. So you can very clearly see that when we do EQ changes, especially when it's big EQ changes like that, it makes a big difference. And the opposite counts as well. If we were to boost the highs, for instance, crazy like that, it's making a big difference in our level. With that said, we can quickly get rid of some of that nasalness. We can definitely make it a bit brighter. Okay, so let's look at the compression. And I just want to do something really crazy with a compressor and bring the threshold all the way down. And you can see when there's a lot of gain reduction, we are losing a lot of level, especially when I bring this threshold all the way down. Obviously, when we set the compressor to the right place, we can use the makeup gain here to make it up again. back to where we were. In the beginning of the video, we spoke about fader resolution. So I just want to look at two extremes, having too much gain and the faders all the way down and it's difficult to mix, and having too little gain where the fader is basically doing nothing. So I've just reframed the camera to avoid the very bright screen. So the first thing I want to do, it's this channel here. I'm going to put the gain all the way down. And now what we're going to see is that the fader is not doing much at the moment. So at a show, you're going to be fader all the way up, which you shouldn't do. That's where you want to mix. That's the sweet spot there, -5 and 0 when the master is on 0. That's the good spot there. And at the moment, there's very little signal. The other extreme is where we gain it and we start getting noise. Ooh, there's a buzz because the gain is all the way to the top. Sounds horrible. And it's just crazy loud. Ooh, horrible buzz now. We're actually close to clipping. Let's go up. We're going to start clipping the embedder. There we can hear the breakup. So we want to avoid that as well. So we've pulled so much gain, we actually, the signal's going out and clipping the embedder and it sounds horrible. The other problem we have when the gains are not set nicely is that it becomes actually quite difficult to mix. If this was a mix and our gains were looking like this, it doesn't practically make a lot of sense for our fader, for our hands. When the gain structure is good and everything is sitting here just under 0 or on 0, if you've got it really dialed in, the mix starts making a lot of sense as well. And you can make those small little changes and it's quite comfortable and it's a good place to mix in. So when you're in a scenario where it's only you and the console and there's no other people who are depending on your gains, you can very simply put your fader on 0 or -5, pull enough gain and make sure you've got enough headroom and mix with that. As long as you know you've got enough level to go to the main PA and you've got enough level to go to the monitors and you're not worried about driving or saturation, going to plugins and stuff like that, you'll be fine. But if you are handing off those signals to someone else, to a recorder or to a live broadcast, now you're in a different situation because you need to make sure that you pull enough gain. So for instance, what you can do is to work to groups and send your groups to matrices, or very simply just send your left-right to a matrix and the matrix will then feed the different PAs and you can just bring the matrices down to match that level nicely. And then something else you'll find is that once you start learning a console and a system, especially when you go to bigger systems, you're going to find that when the gain is in the right place, everything starts working out. The way the faders settle on 0 and what the metering is looking like, and also the receiving side, the in-ears or the PA, just everything is settling very nicely because the hardware wants to work at a certain level. If you enjoyed the video, please give us a like. If you've got any questions, please ask it in the comments. And we are also on Instagram and YouTube, so you're welcome to follow us there and comment and share. We'll appreciate it. And I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.